All right, back in White Pine, and the weather has changed. Man, it was hot here, and now this morning it was 46 degrees. It's in the 50s right now, but we're back, and it's time to get back in here and jump on Tim's Jeep. I want to get some stuff done, so basically this is exactly how I left it. Everything is right where it was. So let's jump in, see what we can do. So my plan was jumped right back in, get this alternator done so we can get it running. But while I was kind of eyeballing everything up, I thought this bolt, was getting a little bit of a leak, or maybe the hose was leaking a little bit. But now I can see that it's the thermostat housing is cracked. So this may not be something that I just have laying around. So let's get it off and find out. I got a bucket under it already. I'm gonna drain the system back down so we can pull that off and see what we got. After running it on the wire wheel, you can see that this crack on this side goes all the way down to the flange, and then it runs across pretty heavily, but it's actually cracked into the flange just a little bit. I might even put a straight edge on it. It looks pretty good here in the video, just to see if it didn't have a crack in the flange. I could take a pencil grinder and clean that up, maybe put a little JB weld in to keep it from leaking. But with that being cracked all the way through, all it's going to take is a little bit of vibration and the heat, cold, and this thing breaks off. And if it breaks off and you're out riding around on the trail, that's not something you can really fix. So I think we better see if we can get a new one. All right, I got everything off, got the bracket off. He really welded this up real good. But I think the problem with this, why it's so far off and difficult to adjust, is because this front motor mount plate, not the motor mount, but the plate on the front is bent. So you can kind of look at it. It comes off pretty straight, but then it takes a little turn. It comes this way. So I can't find my good metal straight edge ruler. So it's nice and tight all the way along there. And then, man, it's already 1/8 of an inch off right there. And that's just about where our mount is. So that being bent is throwing off the alignment of the alternator. And that's why it's not only out, it's not out far enough, but it's also tilted a little bit. So we're gonna have to build a new bracket that actually makes up for that. You can see this bracket was modified. The front engine mount cradle, whatever you want to call it. She's been welded up there a little bit. It even looks like they got a little bit right on the block, but so we're not going to try to fix that. That's done already. We're just going to try to make the alternator work with what we got. I think we turned it just a little bit. That's all we needed. So hopefully you can see I heated it up, pounded it, made a little offset, so now it sits out correctly. But you might also be able to see right there, there's some casting numbers. And so when this bracket goes in, it hits those and pushes it out. So see, it'll never sit flat. So now we have to go in, we'll put the washer on, we'll make a mark, and we'll grind that bracket down so that it's just got enough to hold the bolt and keep everything right without touching that casting mark. So we are close. If we can get it just pushed a little bit like that, I think that will do it. And I think if we can get it tight there, I don't know, it's still got a pretty good twist. I don't know if we're gonna get it. Might have to try this one more time. As we get in a little closer, we're starting to see that everything is starting to line up nice and straight, and the alternator is actually pretty solid. We've got the bracket kind of semi-bent, but if you look closely, right there, you can still see that the belt is kind of hitting the front corner here, and if you look, it's hitting on the bottom. You can't quite see it probably, but it's kind of hitting on the inside corner there. That means that the alternator is kind of like this. It's kind of bent. So we're gonna get the alternator bracket adjustment tool and see if we can fix that. Okay, I got the orange one. It's the smaller of the batch. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this into position right there. We're gonna give it a push. All All right, after making our adjustment, hopefully you can see now we got pretty nice even clearance on both sides of that belt. And I would say our belt is running pretty true. We got everything snugged up. We could actually tighten that belt a little bit more, you can see. So my next little thing is get the headlights put in. But these are CJ5 or Cj2a headlights. They're smaller in diameter, you can see. None of the mounting holes line up. So what are we gonna do? Let me show you some ideas. The first idea was come rob the buckets out of Brownie. As you can see, I started that, but decided, nope, let's not do that. Let's put them back. So I'm gonna put ahead and put those back and decided to anti-seize stuff. So, you know, now I'm covered in that. So my next idea was to look through what I had, and yep, I had a CJ2 extra grill. Of course I did. And so I thought, well, I'll just take the buckets out of that. But these buckets were pretty bad shape too. So then I thought, hey, these outer rings are correct. I'll just cut one off and then weld it to the other buckets. That's when I said, wait a minute, now we're getting way too far. Let's take a second and see if we can figure out what in the heck the other guy did. He had a headlight kind of hanging in there when I got the Jeep. So I tried my hardest to remember what he had done, but I really didn't. So I went ahead and did it myself. And this is what I came up with. Basically just some big washers and a lock washer on the back of some number 10 bolts. And there's the little ground, so I put 3 of them in, and it seems like the bucket is nice and firm. It doesn't rattle or anything like that. All right, check those out. These are reproduction headlight rings, and man, they came out really nice. We were missing one of the clips that go on the internal of the old one, and there's no replacement for that. Probably could have fabricated something, but they weren't in perfect condition either, so went ahead and picked up a brand new set of these, and they really do look great. Another little thing we're gonna have to do is actually cut a little moon shape out of here for our front drive shaft. It's all stock, except for the front shackles are quite a bit taller, so I'm guessing that little bit of extra lift is putting that drive shaft at just the right angle to where it wants to hit. So get that notched out. Since I had the skid plate off, I did notice that there was a tiny drip of oil. Looked like it was coming out of our seal. So I went ahead and dropped my drive shaft. I figured I might as well get up in there and see what it is. And I noticed, hey, there's no cotter pin. Oh, isn't that nice? So I guess at least this will probably be easy to get it off since it's just hand tight. Boy. So let's see what the seal looks like, huh? Ah, yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, well, we'll drain the rest of the oil and get this fixed. So I don't think that seal's much good at that point. So definitely a couple problems. Number one, you know, it kind of looks like they just hammered in the seal. But number two, if you look closer, here's a new seal. There's the gap. The seal is actually supposed to be in this way. So not only is it kind of poorly installed, it's installed backwards. Well, since we have this off, and it was actually cleaned up pretty good, I just wiped it back down. No sense in leaving it bare metal, so we'll go ahead and throw some primer on it and then paint it up. All right, so my puller failed. It pulled the material apart. A couple of vice grips pulling on it also didn't. So now I'm going to take just a small chisel, try to work it in and just start getting the material bent up a little bit, and then I can go around and just kind of do that on all the way around, see if I can get it to come loose that way. All right, took quite a bit to pop it back out of there. Kind of tried to relieve it on one side just to get it to kind of crush in, and then grabbed it over here and started pulling, and finally it popped out. So there's the bad seal. Time to clean things up, put the new one in. All right, I have the little paper seal in the back, putting the seal, the real seal, on the correct way. Actually using some of my stuff from my ball joint press kit. And so I picked out a cylinder that was about the same size, a little backer, and so gotta set you guys down though, unfortunately. I'm gonna get this thing tapped in. All right, there it is. So you can see that little ring It just fits inside there, so that's a perfect tool to pound it in with. Now my housing looks really nice and clean. It doesn't have all the hit marks all the way around it, where it will actually start to warp the metal, and then that's gonna kind of bind on the seal. So this one is ready to put back together. I always like to put a bunch of grease around the seal and in from the back side of the seal. So I already did that, but I'll probably pack just a little more in there just to make sure. All right, everything is back together here. Spins freely. We got everything tightened up on our U-joints. I think these are supposed to be the straps, if I remember right, they're around 20. The nut on the inside, lots of different information on that. 80 all the way up to 200 I saw. I went ahead and torqued this one to 120. Kind of figured that was in the middle somewhere. And so anyway, everything is all clean. And so I'm gonna put a little piece of paper right here on top of my cross member, and then I'm gonna refill and see if we get any leaks. So the same person put the front seal in as the back seal, and I did notice there's also a little bit of oil right there. So better double check it, even though it's all put together. So drop in the back drive shaft, and we'll pull the parking brake assembly off and see what that back seal looks like. Okay, things are looking pretty good. We do have a cotter pin, but we're gonna go ahead and pull the whole yoke just to make sure that that seal is in fact in there correctly. The seal is in the correct way, but you can see there's kind of a few little dents on it from the install. So I'm kind of debating on fixing that, pulling it and changing it. But here's something I always like to do. You inspect where the seal rides. You see how rough that is? That's got a lot of little debris on it. So let's take some real fine sandpaper and see if we can clean that up, because that little pitting will eventually wear out that seal as it spins around it. So we'll see if we can get this cleaned up, because if this isn't smooth, it's gonna wreck that. I got you on the super zoom in. If you look at it a little bit less zoomed in, you see that it actually cleaned up pretty good. There is still a very small line there, and there is a little bit of pitting, but that little bit I think is gonna be fine. It's nice and smooth now, which is kind of what we're shooting for. So definitely nothing that is gonna catch your nail on, so that is a real good thing. We know it's not real deep. And so again, I'll just make sure I put a lot of grease on that seal. When I plug it back in, this should be okay. Remember, that seal will take up some of that. You don't have to worry. I don't think you're gonna sand off too much, just doing it by hand. I started out with a 180, then I went to a 320, and then I just use an embry cloth after that. So that's all I do. So I'm gonna leave the rear drive shaft off just so we can check here. I did put a piece of paper up there underneath that front yoke. So we'll check that one. So we'll come back in a little bit. Everything is nice and topped off. I am using some GL1. This is 90 weight. This is the stuff you get at Tractor Supply. Should be good for these transmissions. Do your research though. Right, I thought I would show you guys. We're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna kind of try to dress back up some of the welding that was done on this already. Some of it's not the greatest. Let me take you over here. There's also a spot where they were kind of working on cutting some stuff free. Didn't quite finish it up, and now there's some pretty deep cuts in that metal. You can see that cut went all the way through. And so just gonna kind of try to clean some of this stuff back off and at least get it looking hopefully a little bit better. Decided it was easier to take the wheel off, but you can see right along there, there's no weld actually in it. There's some pretty nasty holes along the frame. Back here, big, huge gap. So we're gonna pound that up, try to close that in as good as we can, fill that, try to make it look good, but also it's gotta be good and solid. Now the weld that he did up here, that one's not bad. You know, I wouldn't redo that or, you know, be too panicked about it. I don't claim to be a professional welder, but I do feel pretty confident that that is welded in a whole lot better than it was. Plugged in a couple of those holes. Let's go over and take a quick look at the other side before I weld it. So I already showed you those big cut marks in the back side, but this is, I'm gonna have to cut all that out. You know, this weld right here, this doesn't look bad, but man, is that ugly. Hopefully you guys can see it. Here we got a nice little stalactite hanging down. So I think we're gonna go in and cut all that out, pound it up, and prep it and get that welded as well. Well, first, I figured I'd show you from here. You remember the other one was kind of sagged down and full of little spit welds. So I got all that grounded out, got it all pushed back up, pounded into place. So I'll go ahead and try to fill all that. Then we'll go around to the other side, try to fix some of those marks right there. So I got that extra cotter pin in, and now I'm trying to get a little bit of grease in there. Got some grease already in there, a little bit ugly, but this grease fitting, let's see if we can zoom in, it's completely blocked. So we're gonna see if we can get that cleaned out so it'll take some grease, and that might help our pedal a little bit, keep it a little tighter. All right, we got it cleaned out and we got some grease into that pedal. And then while I was standing there, I remembered, oh yeah, the exhaust needs some welding done as well. Oh, there we go. Yep, so we're just gonna take the old hammer, kind of close that gap, see if we can clean this up and get this little flex joint the other guy put in all welded. All right, guys, I got the welds kind of cleaned up a little bit, but I also have got to tighten up this drag link. So one thing I like to use is just a big flat-ended chisel and a ratcheting wrench. You can kind of get them right up in there. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. That's nice and tight. Back on the ground, I thought I should just take a look for any more little leaks. And I do see a little bit leaking right here. But what caught my eye was this one right here. Now granted, that's not gonna leak anything, but I'm gonna give it 2 or 3 turns here with my fingers. Another loose bolt. This one you can see the washer, lock washer's loose on that one. So now I gotta go through and make sure everything on these is tight. 3/4 of a turn to get it snug. And there we go, that one's tight. So I wanted to just double check the clutch adjustment because it seemed like the clutch was slipping just a little bit. And I'm kind of glad that I decided to because there's no cotter pin in there. So we'll pop that out, make the adjustment because the cable feels really tight, and see what we have after we adjust it, and then we'll make sure we put a cotter pin back in. When these got a lot of tension on them, when that cable's really tight, it's pretty hard to do anything with it, and you don't want it to fall off the linkage. Try to get in there. So what you can do is pull down on your lever as much as you can get it down, and then just take a pair of vice grips and hook it to the cable, and then let it off, and it'll hit up against the housing, you can see, and then that should loosen it up a little bit. Yeah, you can see there. Now it's a lot looser. I'll be able to get this pin out, and I don't have to worry about it going back in and falling out of the shift fork. Sorry about the lighting, but right here is the last thing that we have to do underneath is the master cylinder. The master cylinder is just, you can't push the pedal at all. There's no movement in it, and I'm afraid that the length of the shaft is maybe wrong. So what we're going to do is slide that. I already got the cotter pin out. That had a cotter pin on it. So we're gonna push the rod out to the side, get it out of the master cylinder, and then see if we have any movement in the master cylinder or if the master cylinder itself is seized up. All right, I'm fairly excited because when I got that little pin out, this rod moved and it just popped right out. So it is quite a ways back from when the pedal is at rest, which is kind of a good thing because now I know that that is all the way back. So he had this rod adjusted we'll just say, not adjust it correctly. So hopefully we can just adjust this rod and get that travel back into our master cylinder. Whew, I'm sure hoping that's all it is. All right, with that all the way down, we have about 7/8 of adjustment in this little system that's here now. So I measured it and I need to take about 1 inch off, but I'm not gonna take a full inch. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it at about that 7/8 line. We'll bevel the edge, put it back up there. I'd rather cut it a few times than cut it too short and have to start back over. And all the way pushed in and the pedal all the way back. You can still see I'm off by about the thickness of the pin. So go ahead and I will trim a little bit more. All right, with that 3/8 taken off, you can look across and see that the brake pedal, let's see if I can reach up in there and move it a little bit. It's snug, it's touching the floor, and there's just a little bit of pressure on that rod. So now I'll be able to, let me get back in here. I'll be able to go ahead and adjust that jam nut and get that thing tight. But first I want to put the boot back on. If you can see back in there, I got the boot off right now. So I'll put that back on, start getting this thing buttoned up. All right, we got our cotter pin in. I added 1 washer just to shift that over a little bit so it's pushing more straight in. It was kind of off to the one side. So we're gonna get this thing down on the ground and see how the brakes are. Trying to get some of the little detail stuff done with these little cardboard cutouts. I got that one from like Kaiser Willys, I believe. They're pre-cut, they look pretty decent. I've used it a few times. Thing I would say is just try to get it as flat as you can to the body. You're not gonna get it perfectly flat, it's paper. But try to get it as good as you can and then tape off a big area and then just try to, don't spray like down and up, just try to do a fan spray like that. It's a beautiful day outside and we're just about finished with the Jeep. You can see I got a little string going on it, and if you follow it down, it's just touching here, touching both on the back. So it's pretty much how it should look. Over here, maybe you can see right there, you see we're quite a ways out, about 1/2 inch off, and because of that, this one also isn't touching. There we go, you can see that. So hopefully as I bring this front tire in, this tire will get a little closer, and then that one will also get a little closer. The only problem is, whoever put the tie rods in, this one's already tight, and this one's got a lot of adjustment left. So if you're putting tie rods on these, make sure you got them even. That way when you adjust it, you've got full adjustment. Because right now, I have to go ahead, pull this cotter pin, pop this one back down, pull it all the way in, hook it back up, then start to adjust it to get my final. So unfortunately, there wasn't enough in this to make that happen. So I'm gonna do that now. Get everything locked down on the front, take it for a quick drive, see if it feels good. If it does, then that is finished. A little test drive. Well, that brings this build to a close. So I'll just kind of walk you around, show you some of the little details that we ended up doing. Added some little LED driving lights right next to the new winch. Again, there's those nice new chrome bezels. We did the turn signal conversion, so it's got the running lights and turn signals. There's our nice tires. We did do the undercoating underneath the fenders as well as all the way under the body. The other gentleman did that, so I only did the fenders. Let's see, the nice new seat covers. Seat covers are from Big Willys, so you know I've always liked them. They're always pretty comfortable. Let's see, we did end up, because of the little bit bigger wheels,
We put a wheel spacer in here just so that the tire wouldn't rub on the body quite as much. And it was also fairly close to here, but so far there has been 0 rubs. So of course we haven't done any real off-roading yet. Let's see, coming around the back, there's our little details with our nice LED tail lights. Got the little emblem put on there, the decal, whatever you want to say. Here are the speakers in the rear, and there is our basically our little stereo box. So the other speakers, just got a little rag in there for when I'm driving it. There you go, you can see them right up underneath the dash. And then built a nice little box to house his radio and his winch controller. So all of that's right there, easy to get to. Let's see, other things, our little dash emblem that came out nice. The antenna, we ended up using the hole that was there originally for the vacuum line that would have ran up for the wipers. And so we just got this little antenna that fit in there pretty nicely, and it's just short enough to where if you just push it a little bit like that, the windshield folds down real easy. Got some beautiful little oak blocks. Let me show you from this side. Oh yeah, there they are. Sanded those down, put a little bit of exterior wood finish on them, and then took some of the fender welting that was left over and a couple of little brass nails, just so it's got a little something soft to set on. So that is basically it. Hope you enjoyed the build. I'm looking forward to seeing the owner's response, and so check back again for another video real soon. We've got more Jeeps that need to be fixed.